بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بسنته بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending the salutations upon the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam, upon his family and his companions, and upon all those who follow upon his guidance into the establishment of the last day. To proceed, يا إخوان، فهذا الجزء الثاني من محاضرة فضيلة الإمام الشيخ صالح آل شيخ حفظه الله تعالى في ضرورية طلب العلم، وهذا الجزء الثاني وهذا الجزء الثاني. So this is the second part of the lecture of the noble Imam Shaik Saalih Ali Shaykh Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, as he's going over the importance and the necessity of seeking knowledge. Now,
وأما القسم الثاني من التفقه في الدين وهو التفقه في الدين الكفائي، وهو ما إذا كان ثم طائفة من المسلمين في البلد نفسه قاموا بهذا الفرض الكفائي فإن الإثم يزول عن بقية المؤمنين.
So he says, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, as for the second category regarding the obligations of knowledge, it is that which is called al-kifa'i, when the person is seeking knowledge of the religion, but it's not obligatory upon every specific individual, but rather is obligatory upon a certain group of people. He says, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, if a ta'ifatun min al-muslimina fil baladi nafsihi, if a group of Muslims in a particular land, they uphold and fulfill this obligation, then the sin is removed from the remaining group of Muslims in that area.
ولهذا في الحقيقة وجود طلبة علم في مكان وفي بلد وحرص هؤلاء على العلم والتعلم والتعليم وبذل الأوقات في ذلك هذا له أثر على الجميع لو عقلوا.
He says, so for this reason we understand also, if you have a group of seekers of knowledge, a group of students of knowledge in a specific place, a specific land, for example, and you see the diligence of the scholars or the diligence of these individuals regarding learning and spreading the knowledge and teaching the knowledge, whereas they take time out to learn and to seek knowledge and to propagate the knowledge, you find the traces of this thing. It benefits everyone.
وهو أن تفرغهم لذلك وإقبالهم عليه رفع عنهم الإثم.
So when the people, they take time out and they make themselves free in order to learn and seek knowledge, then the sin of those who do not do it, it is removed.
لأنهم قاموا بفرض الكفاية.
Because they have executed and upheld farda al-kifaya, the obligation that is obligatory upon some of the people, not upon all of the people.
دعمهم وحثهم وشكرهم هذا مما ينبغي ويحسن لأنهم قاموا بما هو مفروض على الجماعة.
He says, so now the people should encourage them and should aid them and be grateful and show their gratitude towards them. This is a must. And this is good because they have executed, they put forth the obligation that is an obligation upon the jama'ah, the group of Muslims, not upon everyone, but it's upon some of the Muslims to do that. So since they are doing this, then they should be thanked and helped and aided and encouraged.
في بعض القرى يكون ثم شباب أو ثم من يؤنس في نفسه رشدا ولا يكون في القرية طلاب علم يكفون.
He says, and sometimes you find in some villages, you find they have some youth, they have some shabab, or they have some from amongst them who themselves, they have guidance with them. They are upright. He says, however, you don't find in the village that they have an adequate amount of students of knowledge.
وتجد أن هؤلاء ينشغلون عن العلم بغيره.
He says you find that these individuals, that they allow other things to preoccupy them away from knowledge.
وهؤلاء لا تبرأ ذمتهم لأن الأصل كما قال العلماء أن كل بلد له حكمه في وجود وتحقيق الفرض الكفائي.
He says, however, but they are not free from the blame, because the origin, as the scholars have mentioned, أن كل بلد له حكم في وجود وتحقيق الفرض الكفائي, that every particular country, every particular land, it has its own ruling with regards to what's present and with regards to executing the obligations that are obligatory upon some of the Muslims. If a group of the Muslims fulfill it, then the sin is removed from the remaining Muslims.
فلا يقال في البلد نحن قريبون من البلد الفلانية لأن هذا خلاف الأصل.
So the people shouldn't say we are close to this particular land or the land of such and such and such and such, because this in reality opposes the origin.
والأصل أن كل بلد يخاطب أهلها بوجود بعض طلبة العلم ومن يتعلمون العلم الكفائي.
He says, but rather the origin once again is that every particular land, every country or town, يخاطب أهلها أو يخاطب أهلها بوجود بعض طلبة العلم, that they address the people of that land by way of what exists therein from the students of knowledge in that area, and regarding those who seek knowledge and those who teach the people, regarding the obligations that are obligatory upon some of the Muslims.
حتى ينفعوا أهل البلد وحتى يعلموا أهل البلد ما ينفعهم في دينهم وما يجب عليهم ويحرم عليهم في دين الله.
So that therefore the people of that area, that the students in knowledge of that area, the scholars and the teachers of that area, they can benefit the people of that area. They will teach, they will seek knowledge, and they will give knowledge and propagate the knowledge and teach the people of that area and that land that which will benefit them regarding their religion and what is obligatory upon them in their religion and what has been made prohibited upon them in their religion.
بهذا نقول إن الواقع مع هذا الإقبال الذي نشهده في العلم وطلب العلم، لكن الواقع أن العلم والفقه في الدين الناس معه مقصرون جدا.
He says, however, although we see that some people, they seek knowledge and they come close to knowledge, and we witness this regarding knowledge and the students of knowledge. However, the reality, although we have some, the reality is that mankind, the people, with regards to learning and seeking knowledge of their religion, that they are muqassirun jiddan, that they are falling short. They are very negligent in this regard.
والناس اليوم كثير فهل يحتاجون إلى 1000 طالب علم أو إلى 2000 أو إلى 10,000 أو إلى أكثر؟ يحتاجون إلى أكثر وأكثر.
He says, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, and the people of today, if you were to enumerate and calculate the amount of people of today, you will find that they are numerous. There are numerous people today that live in this time. He says, however, are these people in need of 1,000 students of knowledge Or would you say 2,000 students of knowledge? Or 10,000 students of knowledge? Or would you say more than that? He says they are in need of more than that, even more than that, even more.
كل أهل البلد يجب عليهم التفقه في الدين تفقها عينيا فيما يجب عينا فيه وتفقها كفاهيا فيما يجب كفاهيا فيه.
He says all of the people of the particular land, it is obligatory upon them to seek knowledge of their religion. The seeking knowledge of their religion, that is obligatory upon everyone to learn. Those things that are obligatory upon every Muslim to know, every Muslim has to learn these things. And those things that are not obligatory upon everyone, but rather upon some of the people, then the ones that is obligatory upon them, they have to learn these things.
وما أعظم قول النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام من يريد الله أن يهديه يفقهه كما جاء في أحد روايات حديث ابن عمر وفي الرواية المشهورة من يريد الله به خيرا يفقهه في الدين.
He says, and how great, how tremendous is the statement of the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam. Translators note, this hadith has been narrated by Ibn Umar. He says, how great is the statement of the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam that he says, Man yuridillahu an yahdiyahu yufaqihu fid din. He says, and this narration is the narration of Ibn Umar. He says that the Messenger of Allah says, whoever Allah intends to guide, whoever Allah wants guidance for, yufaqihu fid din. Then he gives this individual an understanding of the religion. He says, and there's another famous narration of the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. Translators note, this hadith is narrated by three companions. An Ibn Abbas, Abi Hurairah, wa Muawiyah. This hadith is narrated by Ibn Abbas, Abu Hurairah, and Muawiyah. Ibn Abbas's narration is collected by Tirmidhi and Ahmad. Abu Hurairah is collected by Ibn Majah, and Muawiyah is collected by Bukhari and Muslim. The Messenger of Allah, he says, Man yuridillahu bihi khayra yufaqihu fi din. Whoever Allah intends good for, he gives him an understanding of the religion.
والحظ الرواية الأولى من يريد الله أن يهديه يفقهه لأن حقيقة الفقه هي أن ينشرح الصدر للإسلام بكله.
He says, so pay attention to the first narration that we mentioned. The Messenger of Allah says, Man yuridillahu an yahdiyahu yufaqihu fi din. Whoever Allah intends good for, he guides him. Whoever Allah intends guidance for, he gives him an understanding of the religion. So our Shaik Saalih, Ali Shaykh, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, he says, because the reality of understanding is in the chest of the individual expanding and opening up to accept the entire religion of Al-Islam. Allahu Akbar.
فمن يريد الله أن يهديه يشرح صدره للإسلام ومن يريد أن يضله يجعل صدره ضيقا حرجا كأنما يصعد في السماء.
He says, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, as Allah Ta'ala, he mentions, and this comes in Surah Al-An'am, where Allah Ta'ala says, فَمَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. And whomsoever Allah intends guidance for, يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ, then Allah opens up for him. Allah expands for him his chest, his heart, لِلْإِسْلَامِ, for the religion of Al-Islam. وَمَنْ يُرِدْ أن يضله يجعل صدره ضيقا حرجا كأنما يصعد في السماء. الآية. And whoever Allah intends misguidance for, he doesn't intend for this person to be guided. يجعل صدره ضيقا حرجا. Then Allah makes his chest, his heart, constricted and tight. كأنه يصعد في السماء, as if he's ascending in the heavens. He makes his heart tight and restricted. كأنه يصعد في السماء, as if he is ascending, going upwards, going up and up and up in the heavens. Surah 2 Al-An'am.
إذا تبين لك ذلك وأنه يجب على كل مسلم أن يتعلم العلم العيني، ويجب على جماعة المسلمين في كل بلد أن يكون منها طلاب علم يتعلمون ويبذلون في العلم أوقاتهم وترسخ أقدامهم في العلم حتى يقوموا بالواجب الكفائي.
He says, so if this becomes clear to you, if you understand this, what I'm mentioning, the Shaykh Hafidullah, if you understand, translator's note, what the Imam is putting forth here, if this يتبين لك هذا, this becomes clear to you, he says that is obligatory upon every Muslim to learn the knowledge that is obligatory upon him and her to know. And it's obligatory upon the group of Muslims in every land, in every country, in every province, for them to have amongst them, from them, students of knowledge. Those students of knowledge who learn and seek knowledge of the religion, who exhaust themselves regarding learning their religion. They put the time and the efforts so they can be grounded and uprooted, so their feet can be firm in this religion, so that they could carry out those things that are obligatory upon them to carry out. He says, بالواجب الكفائي, those things that are obligatory upon some of the Muslims. If they do it, then the sin is off of the other group of Muslims.
فإن للفقه في الدين من أراد أن يطلبه له منهج.
He says, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, translator's note, a tremendous point here. He says, Shaik Saalih Ali Shaykh Sallamahullahu min kulli su'un wa makruh, may Allah protect him from all harms and all evils, wa jami'a al-ulama, and all of the scholars of al-Islam. He says, so seeking knowledge of the religion, for the one who wants to seek it, seeking knowledge of the religion, for the one who wants to seek it, it's upon him to follow a minhaj, a methodology in seeking knowledge. For the one who wants to seek knowledge, it's upon him to follow a minhaj, the methodology of seeking knowledge. No.
ومن الناس من يريد ولكن لا منهج عنده لتحصيل العلم.
He says there are some of the people, from the people, they want to learn and they want to seek knowledge, but they don't know the proper methodology of obtaining the knowledge. There's some people who want to be students of knowledge, but they don't know the minhaj indahu li tahsil al-ilm. They don't know the proper way to go about obtaining knowledge.
فلذلك يدرك بعضا ويفوته بعض ويكون مشتتا بين ذا وذاك.
He says, so therefore you find that they may obtain a little bit of knowledge, but it misses them a portion of the knowledge because they don't follow a particular minhaj methodology in doing so. So they have some knowledge here of some things, but generally they are ignorant. Some of the knowledge has left them, and then they are doubtful and obscure regarding this and this.
أما التوحيد والفقه في التوحيد وهو الذي سماه بعض العلماء الفقه الأكبر، لأن الله جل وعلا قال ليتفقهوا في الدين، والعلماء سموا العلم بالأحكام العبادية والمعاملات إلى آخره سموها فقها.
He says, with regards to at-tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeking understanding and gaining knowledge in this regard of at-tawheed. He says, and this is the category that the scholars of Islam, they have called al-fiqhu al-akbar. Al-fiqhu al-akbar, the major fiqh. The major fiqh. He says, and why do they say that? He says they say that because Allah Ta'ala says in the ayah, translator's note, that comes in Surah At-Tawbah, Allah Ta'ala says, لِيَتَفَقَّهُ فِي الدِّينِ, in order for them to gain knowledge, understanding of the deen, of the religion. Surah At-Tawbah. So the scholars, they call this, or they call the knowledge that focuses on the rulings and legislations of worship and the mu'amalat, the general dealings of the people between the other people. He said they call this fiqhan. They call this fiqh. They call this fiqh, understanding. So they call the rulings and legislations of worship and the issues of al-mu'amalat, the general dealing with the people, they call this fiqh. So everything outside of that, they call al-fiqhu al-akbar, major fiqh, because this is the greatest and the most important. He says, so this fiqh al-akbar, this major fiqh, and that is understood to be the oneness of Allah. The oneness of Allah. He says, learning about the oneness of Allah, this has a particular methodology about, or with regards to how to go about achieving it, how to learn it.
وليس العلم به تجميع مسائل أو أجوبة من الشيخ الفلاني والعالم الفلاني أو قراءة الفتاوى، ليس ذلك.
He says, translators note, another tremendous point. And we want the people to pay attention here. And we're trying our best to say it in the same style as the Sheikh is saying it in the Arabic language. And may Allah make us better translators. He says, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, and knowledge is not that you just gather together and learn certain issues. He says, or knowledge is also not just the answering of this Sheikh and the giving fatwa of this Sheikh, or this great alim, he said this, and this great imam answered that. He said, nor is knowledge reading the fatwa of different mashayikh. He said, this is not seeking knowledge.
هذا زاد في الطريق، لكن العلم بالتوحيد له منهج. التوحيد أو العقيدة يقسمها العلماء إلى قسمين.
He says this will be Zad al-Tariq. This is the person who is seeking an increase. He's on the path, but he's seeking an increase. But when it comes to knowledge and learning knowledge of the oneness of Allah, it has a methodology. And the scholars have divided a tawheed into two. They have divided a tawheed into two.
القسم الأول التوحيد، وهو ما يدخل في التوحيد الربوبية والألوهية والأسماء والصفات.
He says the first category is called, or that which includes the oneness of Allah. The Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the oneness of Allah's lordship. Wa Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, the oneness of Allah's worship. Wa Tawheed al-Asma'i wa Sifat, and the oneness of Allah's names and attributes.
والثاني العقيدة التي تدخل في أركان الإيمان الستة، إيمان بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وبالقدر خيره وشره، والتي جاءت في الآيات وفي حديث جبريل، وما اتصل بذلك من مسائل العقيدة.
He says, and as for the second category, with regards to the aqidah, the belief, first category, at-tawheed. Second category, al-aqidah, the belief. And this includes the 6 pillars of Iman. This includes the 6 pillars of Iman. Having Iman in Allah, having belief in Allah, having belief in His angels, having belief in His books, having belief in His messengers, having belief in the last day, having belief in the divine decree of Allah, khayrihi wa sharrih. It's good and it's bad. This is derived from those ayat of the Quran, and this is derived from the hadith of Jibril alayhi salatu wasalam. Translator's note, that hadith is narrated by Umar and is collected by Imam Muslim. He says, in all that which is connected to it from the issues and the affairs of belief.
هذا التوحيد الفقه فيه هو أعظم ما يتقرب به العبد إلى ربه.
He says, so this issue here, the tawheed here, and the fiqh here, the oneness of Allah, and understanding it, is from the greatest affairs. يتقرب به العبد إلى ربه. It's from the greatest affairs that by way of it, the servant is brought close to his Lord.
لأنه أعظم الفرائض. قد صح عنه عليه الصلاة والسلام أنه قال: وما تقرب إلي عبدي بشيء أحب إلي مما فرضته عليه.
He says, and that is because it is of the greatest of obligations. So therefore, when the person is seeking it, it's from the greatest means to bring him closer to Allah. It has been authentically narrated from the Messenger alayhi salatu salam, collected from the Messenger alayhi salatu salam, translator's note, in the hadith of Abu Hurairah, collected by Bukhari and Muslim. The Messenger of Allah said, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيْهِ مِمَّا افْتَرَضْتُهُ عَلَيْهِ. The Messenger of Allah says that Allah Ta'ala says that the servant does not come close to me with anything more beloved to me than by that which I have made obligatory upon him. By that which I have made obligatory upon him.
فهذا الفرض وهو العلم بالتوحيد، العلم بالعقيدة، هذا من أوجب الواجبات.
So this obligation, meaning the knowledge, seeking knowledge of Allah's oneness, seeking knowledge of al-aqidah, the belief of al-Islam, this is the greatest, most important obligation.
كيف تتعلم وما هو المنهج في ذلك؟ هذا من أعز المطالب.
He says, so now how does a person go about learning this affair, the aqidah, the tawheed? What is the methodology that the person has to traverse upon? This is a'azzul matalib. This is from the most distinguished and the most great, or the greatest of that which is requested.
رأيت صنيع العلماء الذين رسخت قدمهم في العلم وصار الناس يرجعون إليهم، لوجدت أنهم طلبوا العلم على أشياخهم على منهج ساروا عليه.
He says, if you were to take a look at the group of the scholars of Islam, if you were to look at them and examine them, those that their feet are grounded and rooted in knowledge, the true scholars of this religion, those that their feet are rooted and grounded, those that the people yarji'una ilayhim, they return back to them. Translators note, meaning to ask them questions of the religion, to ask them issues of al-Islam. The people return back to them. You would find that they sought knowledge from their teachers, from their mashaykh, upon a methodology that they traveled upon. They didn't just seek knowledge like that. They sought knowledge from their mashaykh, from their teachers, their scholars, upon a particular methodology. And this methodology that you find them upon is the same methodology that their scholars that came before them followed. And it's the same methodology that their scholars that came before them follow, going all the way back into the most victorious of the generations.
وهو أن يبدأ في ذلك بالنبذ والمختصرات من الرسائل والكتب ثم يترقى إلى ما هو أكبر.
And you find that they began with that which was general. They began with the mukhtasarat. They began with the smaller affairs of knowledge and the summarized issues and the summarized books. And then after mastering and learning that, you found that they went on to the bigger and greater works.
أقسام التوحيد وما ينفع فيها، يعني في تحقيق الفقه وطلب العلم فيها. أما توحيد الربوبية وهو مهم، لا كما يظن البعض أن توحيد الربوبية ليس مهما.
He says, so therefore, we take the categories of Tawheed. We understand the divisions and the classifications and the categories of Tawheed, and that which the person benefits from them. Meaning, we execute al-fiqh, the understanding of al-Tawheed. And we seek knowledge of this regard. He says, as for the Tawheed of al-Rububiyyah, the Tawheed of Allah's Lordship, and he says, and this is important. It's not like many of the people think today that the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is not important, but rather it is important. He says, Tawheed al-Rububiyyah and learning the oneness of Allah's Lordship is important. However, it is not the origin. It is not the foundation.
فإن عبادته لله وحده تضمنت أنه وحد الله في ربوبيته وأنه لا رب سوى جل وعلا.
He says, however, the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah laysa asasan. It is not the foundation. He says, what is the foundation? The foundation is Tawheedul Ibadah, that the person singles out Allah and Allah alone in his worship. He says, because the one, Abadallah wahda, who worships Allah and Allah alone, without any partners. This particular individual here, who worships Allah and Allah alone, his worship includes that he singles out Allah in lordship. If he understands the foundation, then he's going to understand the rububiyyah of Allah. If he singles out Allah in worship, this includes that he singles out Allah in Allah's lordship. Therefore, he understands that he has no other Rabb, no other creator, sustainer, provider besides Allah.
لكن توحيد الربوبية مهم ووجه أهميته من جهتين.
He says, however, we have to reiterate that the Tawheed of Ar-Rububiyyah, the Tawheed of Allah's Lordship, it is important. And we say it's important from two angles.
الجهة الأولى أنه وسيلة لقيام الحجة في توحيد الإلهية.
He says, in this angle, the first angle, is that it is a means of executing and carrying out the proof regarding the oneness of Allah's worship.
والله جل وعلا في القرآن في آيات كثيرة جعل الحجة لازمة للمشركين في عدم توحيدهم لله بالعبادة بأنهم وحدوا الله في الربوبية.
He says, you find in the Quran that Allah Ta'ala, in many occurrences, many instances in the Quran, Allah places the proof of burden, lazimatan lil mushrikeen, making it binding upon the polytheists, because they did not single Allah Ta'ala out in worship. So you find that they worship Allah, they singled out Allah in rububiyyah, but they did not single out Allah Ta'ala in His Lordship. So Allah establishes the proof against them because they did not worship Allah and Allah alone.
قل من يرزقكم من السماء والأرض أم من يملك السمع والأبصار ومن يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ومن يدبر الأمر فسيقولون الله فقل أفلا تتقون فذلكم الله ربكم الحق فماذا بعد الحق إلا الضلال.
So from these proofs that Allah Ta'ala establishes against them comes translator's note in Surah Yunus, where Allah Ta'ala says, say to them, O Muhammad, قُلْ مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Say to them, O Muhammad, who is the one that provides for you from the heavens and the earth? أَمَّنْ يَمْلِكُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَمَنْ يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ وَمَنْ يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرَ فَسَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهُ. Allah continues the ayah. Allah Ta'ala says, and the one who ماذا يملك السمع والأبصار, He bestows upon you hearing and vision. And who is the one that brings forth from the living, or brings the living from the dead, and the dead from the living? And who is the one يدبر الأمر, who arranges the affairs? They will surely say, this one is Allah. فَقُلْ, so say to them, O Muhammad, أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ. Then therefore, since you acknowledge all of this and you believe in all of this, are you not going to fear Him? Then Allah Ta'ala continues, فَذَلِكُمْ اللَّهُ رَبُّكُمُ الْحَقَّ فَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الضَّلَالِ. Allah says, so this is Allah, your true Lord, your true Creator and Deity. So what is there after truth except falsehood? Allah.
يعني إذا أيقنتم أن الله هو المدبر وهو المحيي وهو المميت فهو المستحق إذن للعبادة.
So meaning, the Shaik Saalih, he says here, meaning, if you believe with certainty, you acknowledge, you believe this, you attest to this, that Allah, He is al-mudabbir, He is the arranger of affairs. وَهُوَ الْمُحْيِي, and He is the one that gives life and grants life. وَهُوَ الْمُمِيت, and He is the one that takes life. So therefore, He is the one and only entity, being, supreme entity, mustahiqqun lil-ibadah, that deserves to be worshipped. Allah.
أيشركون ما لا يخلق شيئا وهم يخلقون ولا يستطيعون لهم نصرا.
As Allah Ta'ala, He says, do they establish partners with Allah? ما لا يخلق شيئا وهم يخلقون. Allah Ta'ala, He says, translators note, and this shows the importance of the Arabic language, ya ikhwan. When you read the ayat and you read the hadith, the how of how Allah said it, and the how of how the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam said it. Allah Ta'ala, He says, and this comes in Surah Al-A'raf, أَيُشْرِكُونَ مَا لَا يَخْلُقُ شَيْئًا وَهُمْ يُخْلَقُونَ. Do they establish partners with Allah? And these partners that they establish with Allah, they can't create anything in the least, shay'an, anything. وَهُمْ يُخْلَقُونَ. But the thing that you worship along with Allah, that thing itself is created. وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ لَهُمْ نَصْرًا. And those people who establish partners with Allah, they can't even help the ones that they worship. Or you can say, the things that they worship besides Allah can't even help them. And whatsoever. Surah Al-A'raf.
فإذا في القرآن جعل التوحيد الربوبية أو جعل الإقرار بأن الله هو الرب وهو المدبر وهو المحيي والمميت وهو الذي يجير ولا يجار عليه وهو الخالق الرازق إلى آخره، جعله ملزما للمشرك في عبادة الله وحده دون ما سواه. وهذا كثير في آيات القرآن.
He says, so if you ponder this and understand this, Allah Ta'ala in this ayah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, he placed regarding the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah and their acknowledging of the Lordship of Allah that they believed and attested to and affirmed that they believe Allah is the Lord. They believe Allah is the Mudabbir, the arranger of affairs. They believe Allah is the one who gives life. They believe Allah is the one who takes life. They believe Allah is the one who protects. And they believe no one can protect against Allah. And they believe Allah is the creator. And they believe Allah is the off provider to the end. Then Allah made this mulzaman lishirk. He made this binding, or lil mushrik. He made this as a proof against the polytheists, that if you acknowledge all of this, then this is a proof that you should single out Allah and Allah alone in worship. And you find this a lot of times in the Quran.
الثاني من وجه أهمية توحيد الربوبية أن القرآن فيه كثير من الآيات فيها إرشاد إلى صنع الله جل وعلا في ملكوته وفي تدبيره للأمر وفي أنه سبحانه وتعالى هو الرب المتصرف وحده الرزاق وحده إلى آخر ذلك.
He says, and the second angle that I wanted to mention that shows the importance of the Tawheed of Allah's Lordship is that in the Quran, you also find many ayat, many occurrences, many verses in the Quran that shows the guidance, the irshad of the worship of Allah. That Allah Ta'ala, He is the possessor of the minion. That Allah, He is the arranger of the affairs. That Allah, He is al-Rabbul Mutasarrifu Wahda. He is the Lord, the true Lord alone, that He arranges the affairs. That Allah is Ar-Razzaq. He is the true provider. Him and Him alone. You find this many times in the Quran.
والفقه في هذا يجعل المؤمن على حقيقة التوكل عليه سبحانه وتعالى.
And this gives the true believer, in reality, if he understands the rububiyyah of Allah, it makes the true believer have total reliance and total dependence or dependency upon Allah and upon Allah alone.
وعلى حقيقة التدبر في أنه لا غناء له عن الله جل وعلا طرفة عين.
He says, and the person who understands the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, he understands the reality of a tadabbur, the reality of a tadabbur, the reality of pondering and contemplating and focusing. He understands that he can't live without Allah, not even for the blinking of an eye. He's in need of Allah. If he understands a rububiyyah, and he understands the reality of contemplation and reflection and focusing, he realizes, he understands, لا غناء له عن الله طرفة عين. Allahu Akbar. He says he knows he cannot live without Allah at all and whatsoever, from no angle, not even for the blinking of an eye.
وفي حقيقة أن الرب جل جلاله هو الغني وأن العبد فقير.
He says, and also, if he understands the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the oneness of Allah's Lordship, if he understands it in the reality, he understands it. He knows that it means that he knows Allah is al-Ghani. Allah is the off-rich. Allah is the one that does not need anyone nor anything. But he knows that the servant is al-Faqir. He is the one that is in dire need of Allah.
وإنما يأتي الخلل في العبادة ويأتي الخلل في عدم الخضوع والخشوع ويأتي الخلل في ارتكاب المنكرات.
And the person, he finds fault and blemishes and shortcomings within his worship. And he finds fault and blemishes because he does not have the khudu', he does not have the focus, he does not have the khushu' the concentration and the fear of Allah, and he finds shortcomings and blemishes with regards to him falling into those things that are sinful. And he finds fault and blemishes because he falls into those things that opposes the truth. And he falls into those things that are from the muharramat, those things that are prohibited and sinful. And he finds all of this, he finds that he is also negligent in carrying out those things Allah has made obligatory upon him. And he finds all of this if he does not have in his heart the fear, the love of Allah. And he does not, subhanallah, he does not yujal a'zam Allah or a'zam al-ijlal. He does not glorify the glory, the honor. He does not deem honorable the honor of Allah. He does not glorify the glory of Allah.
وكلما علم الآيات التي فيها أن الله هو الرب جل وعلا وحده وهو المتصرف، يعني ما يدخل في توحيد الربوبية، وأن كل شيء إنما هو بيده سبحانه وتعالى، كلما عمر هذا القلوب كلما خشعت وخضعت ولو كادته الناس جميعا لما أبه بذلك.
He says, so all of this he finds when he does not have in his heart the love of Allah, and he does not glorify the glory of Allah, and does not deem honorable the honor of Allah, and he is not fearful from Allah. And every time the servant tadabbara, ponders and reflects, wanadara, and examines and takes looks, he says every time the servant learns the verses of Allah, those verses that show and indicate that Allah is Ar-Rabb, the Lord, the Creator, the Provider, the Cherisher, the Sustainer, Him and Him alone. He is Al-Mutasarrif. He is the one that's in charge of everything, that He runs everything. Every time the servant, he understands that these things are in the hands of Allah, he says, you find that he has the love in his heart. If this is the case, then he has khushu' of Allah. He has the humbleness and humility towards Allah. And he is fearful of Allah. And he has that concentration of Allah, even if all of the people are against him.
يؤدي يعني عدم الاهتمام بالفقه في توحيد الربوبية يؤدي إلى ضعف القلوب تجاه الناس وإلى ضعف القلوب في التمسك، ويكون الخشوع ضعيفا لأنه لم يجل الله جل وعلا ولم يرى بديع، بل لم يرى بديع صنع الله جل وعلا في كل شيء.
He says, so here you find that if the person does not give consideration, he does not give al-ihtimam bil-fiqh, he does not focus and centralize and give consideration to having understanding of his religion regarding the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah, the oneness of Allah's Lordship, you find that he does not have this, he does not possess that. This leads to a weakness in their hearts, and they turn towards people. They have a weakness in how they believe in Allah, so they turn towards the people. You find that they are weak in their heart regarding holding on to the Quran and the Sunnah, that they are weak in their heart regarding al-khushu', the humility and the concentration and being humble in front of Allah. The reason behind this is because they do not glorify Allah. They do not see the badi'ah of the sun'a'illah, the honor and the glory of what Allah Ta'ala has created, that everything is in existence because of Allah. He says, and how great and how beautiful is the statement of the one who said, and then he mentions the line of poetry as he says that the one who said this, وَفِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ لَهُ آيَةٌ تَدُلُّ عَلَى أَنَّهُ الْوَاحِدُ, that the poet used to say, and in everything is a sign, وَفِي كُلِّ شَيْءٍ لَهُ آيَةٌ, in everything lies a sign, تَدُلُّ عَلَى أَنَّهُ وَاحِدٌ, and this sign shows that he is one, meaning the creator. ونكتفي بهذا يا إخوان لأن وقت الصلاة قد تقرب، فلذلك نكتفي بهذا الحسب. So we'll stop there inshallah ta'ala because the time of the prayer has come close, and we'll suffice ourselves with this portion بإذن الله تعالى. وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.